On today's episode of the Cryptoverse, Bitwala sees a steep adoption of Bitcoin in developing countries despite the high transaction fees. Dash is the privacy-focused digital currency that offers transactions with instant confirmations. Its unique decentralized decision-making and self-funding system make it an ideal choice as a stable and secure digital cash. Click the link in the video description to learn more. Hi there guys, and welcome to the latest episode of the Cryptoverse, your regular dose of news and commentary on Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, and blockchains. I am your host, Chris Coney. Now today is Friday the 14th of April 2017. We're going to do one announcement, market roundup, and then we'll get into the news. Oh, and also I'm going to talk about Litecoin SegWit for about 30 seconds. Just to make absolutely sure everybody knows about this, David Apple from Bitcoin Empire is coming on the show next week as next week's guest. And this is a new thing I'm doing. If you go to cryptoversity.com/survey, I would very much like it if you would submit a question that you would like me to ask of David Apple. Already had some questions come in, really good questions, so I appreciate that. But the more the merrier. So cryptoversity.com/survey, submit your question for David Apple, and then I'll do this on a regular basis for new guests and so on. So we can get this as a crowdfunded sort of interview system going on. And now it's time for the market roundup, courtesy of coinmarketcap.com. Now today, Dash and Litecoin have gone full infomercial on us. For one day only, you can have your very own Dash digital currency token for just $69.99. Or why not pick yourself up a Litecoin for just $9.99? Alright, enough of that. Those are the actual prices right now, by the way. That wasn't just a joke. Dash with a 2.7% gain and Litecoin with a 4.7% loss. That's mean they've switched places once again. Dash is now leading Litecoin by market cap, but by only around $350,000. Not much considering they are both $500 million blockchains. Now after a couple of big days and a one-day visit into the top 10, PivX has had an 11.6% price drop, but it holds up in 11th place at $1.51 a coin. Moving on from there, easily the biggest winner today in the insanity category is Stratis, which you may remember from a few episodes ago. Today it's up 43.4%, putting it in 15th place ahead of Decred. And that was the result of $4 million of Stratis being traded over the last 24 hours. Now Stratis are building an app platform for C# and .NET developers. Now you can develop apps in any language and then connect them to a blockchain. It's just that with Stratis, the apps that you develop in C# and .NET will run natively on the Stratis blockchain. That makes a big difference in the same way that PeerPlays is building the game logic right into the blockchain itself. And then finally, I'm just going to give a mention to Singular DTV, because after a good run recently, it has dropped 23% today, meaning it has slid down to 23rd place, and a token is now worth about 5.5 cents each. Let's take a very quick stopover at the Litecoin network to see how the segregated witness technology is getting on in terms of potentially launching. So 75% is the goal for the activation threshold. It has to stay at 75% or above for a full activation period, which is 2 weeks. You'll see that the current miner support in the current activation period is 68.37%. It's creeping up. And you'll see that today, in the last 24 hours, that's 83%. So the trend is going up. But, you know, I always say don't look at the 24-hour figure. It'll just bug you out. So let's stay focused on the activation number, which is this one here. And as it creeps up towards 75%. So today, after much searching and many boring stories, I've turned once again to Bitcoinist.com for the second day running now. Now, some days there are so many good stories that I struggle to actually pick one. On other days, I read all the articles and I don't like any of them. The question is, what do I do on those days? Right? Let me know your advice in the comments section below if you would be so kind. Let's get into this one then. So it says here, Bitwala, a Bitcoin-based remittance app, shared some user statistics in a blog post yesterday, in which we can see that Bitcoin is becoming increasingly popular in certain developing countries. Now, those certain countries are Africa and Asia, according to this article, although I'd call those continents rather than countries, right? Nigeria is a country. South Africa, oddly, is a country inside the continent of Africa. That one's a weird one. Now, it cites here that Asia and Africa are also the continents with the highest population of unbanked citizens. No surprise there. The elephant in the room for me here, though, is we are still squarely talking about bridging fiat currencies to cryptocurrencies, even if that means turning it back into national currency at the other end of the transaction. Now, the difference with Humanic, and the reason why I've pledged a little bit of money to that project, is that they're including a component where Africans can earn cryptocurrency directly, which is the ideal scenario because it all happens without having to touch the old financial system. That's a fact that we need to keep in the absolute forefront of our minds. It's the fact that fundamentally all value is created through human activity. Now, we are the ones who create the value from nothing with our ideas, our imagination, and our physical energy. Currency then just allows us to store and transaction the value that we've created previously. So currency is this secondary layer on top of the primary layer, which is human activity. So cryptocurrency then is just a more efficient way for us to bridge the value that one human creates with another. And this form of money we use to trade it directly as it should be and as it was in the days of like barter-based economies. So moving on with the article then, down to the orange bit. It says this growing trend among developing countries where financial exclusion is the norm, it reveals a growing need for citizens of these countries to interact with the world economy and to access financial services typically provided by banks. Now, there were two burning questions I wanted answers to before I pledged to the Humanic project. The first one came up based on something that guy Crypto said about Humanic. He said that people will be able to get loans through the app by putting up Humanic tokens as collateral. Now, that immediately made absolutely no sense to me because if I'm an unbanked citizen of Africa, say with 10,000 Humanic tokens, and I want a loan for 15,000 Humanic, if I put up my 10,000 Humanic tokens as collateral, well, I would have to lock them up in case I didn't pay back the loan. Well, the first problem there is that my 10,000 Humanic collateral isn't enough to pay back the full 15,000 that I borrowed. And the second problem is that I've only ended up with an extra 5,000 extra Humanic tokens than I actually started with. And of course, I can't borrow any more because I've got no collateral left. So the idea that you can use some of the money that you borrow as collateral for the money that you borrow makes no sense. And normally you would put up an asset as collateral that has an equal value to the loan, so that in a situation where I don't pay back the loan, I have to give up that asset so it can be sold to pay back the loan. So you know me, I went to the source. I started an online live chat with Humanic. In fact, let me show you the exact conversation I had with them. So here's the part of the conversation where I asked about the loans. I said, users in Africa will also be able to get loans through Humanic. Is that correct? He says, yes, all of our users, meaning not just people in Africa, anyone who's using the Humanic app. Then I specifically ask, are those loans protected by collateral? To which he says, we will have a credit score instead of collateral, which means no collateral. Now that made more sense to me because these folks are at the poverty line and are unlikely to have any physical assets to put up as collateral in the traditional sense anyway. So the credit score approach combined with the biometric ID system that Humanic are going to use is a much better approach to my mind. So back to the article then. My point there was to highlight the importance of creating the opportunity for people to earn cryptocurrency. That is the elephant in the room. Because in one move, it bypasses 80% of the headaches of interacting with the legacy financial system, right? That's just my take on it. So let's move on to the yellow bit further down here. According to 21.co, the cheapest transaction fee for a Bitcoin transaction is currently at around 50 cents, or 0.0003616 Bitcoin. While admittedly not ideal for microtransactions, it's still cheaper than the 10 to 19% charged by banks on, quote, any transfers to, from, and within African countries, close quote. Well, it says 50 cents is the cheapest transaction fee. Goodness me. It says this is cheaper than the 10 to 19%. Well, not if the transaction is for $5, because a 50-cent transaction fee is 10%. And again, that's on the cheap end. Now I'm going to say it again. I would much rather pay an African in cryptocurrency to provide a service through Humanic or through OpenBazaar than send my fiat currency via some remittance service. I mean, think about it. Remittance services are only valid as long as there is a need to transact one fiat currency to another. And finally, in the green bit, it says here, quote, people often say, necessity is the mother of invention. But I like to say necessity is also the mother of adoption, close quote. And that was Lightning CEO Elizabeth Stark saying in a new documentary called Blockchain and Us. You know, I absolutely love that. I love a new take on an old maxim. I've never heard it said that way before, that necessity is the mother of adoption. That's brilliant. In this documentary, The Blockchain and Us, it's just over 30 minutes long. And as far as I can tell, it's actually free to watch. So I'll post a link to it in the YouTube video description for this episode. I've only just heard about this, so I'll make a note to watch it myself. So thanks for joining me today, guys. If you liked this episode, hit the like button. If you disliked it, hit the dislike button. Please leave me a comment below with some feedback and get subscribed. And please support the Cryptoverse and boost cryptocurrency adoption by going to cryptoversity.com/podcast and becoming a patron. From just a few dollars a month, you can secure Cryptoversity's future, get unlimited access to all Cryptoversity courses, and access a private patrons-only chat group where you get direct access to me. That is all for today, guys. I'll be back on Monday with another episode of the Cryptoverse. So until then, it's me, Chris Coney, saying bye for now.